Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06 on O'Connor and Company as we charge into our big 7 o'clock hour. It's always our big 7 o'clock hour. Have you noticed how big it is, Julie Gunlock?
Yes.
Excuse me. Coming up at 7:35, we're going to talk to Gary Katz, who is running for Loudoun County Chair at Large for the Board of Supervisors, and we'll certainly get him to comment on last night's fiasco. 8:05, Dr. Robert Malone on this march toward a lockdown, it appears, just in time for the Virginia elections. And then at 8:35, Luke Rosiak, who's got some news about Loudoun County love warriors and an arrest made by the Sheriff's Department. That's all coming up. But right now we're joined by Hans von Spakovsky. He's a former county election official down in Fulton County, ironically, and the manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative, senior legal fellow at Heritage Foundation, and a veteran of the Justice Department. So you hit for the cycle here, Hans. Thanks for joining us.
Well, good morning, Larry. Good morning, Julie.
So following up, we had a conversation with Joe DeGeneva about this, but we wanted to get your perspective here as well on this obvious initiative in certain states to trigger a 14th Amendment disqualification of Donald Trump on the ballot. Obviously a sign that they don't trust the people of their state to actually vote. They don't want Donald Trump to even be an option. Tell us the precedent, if there is any, for this, and what the 14th Amendment really says about disqualifying someone from federal office. Is it really up to the states to then do this, or is it more of a federal thing?
It's a federal thing, but the real problem is, every single news article I've seen about this, and, CNN, for example, had one citing Adam Schiff and Tim Kaine, of all people.
Yeah.
Look, what they're talking about is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. This was put in after the Civil War, and it was because Republicans at the time who controlled Congress were angry that all these former Confederates were getting reelected to Congress. So they put in a provision saying if you've engaged in insurrection or rebellion, you can't serve in any post, not only in the federal government, but in state government either, okay? Every single discussion of this I've seen fails to mention. They talk about Section 3. They all fail to mention that Section 3 had something unique in it. It had one line at the end. You could pull out the Constitution, read it. It says Congress can get rid of this section with a 2/3 vote of each house. No other amendments got anything like that in it. And what everybody fails to mention is Congress did exactly that in 1872 and 1898. They passed amnesty acts that basically got rid of Section 3. So all the discussions about it, it just doesn't exist. Moreover, you may have seen this, that a liberal lawyer already filed a suit in Florida trying to get Trump barred from the presidential primary. And again, I find this extremely ironic. The federal judge threw out the case saying that the lawyer and ordinary voters, they don't have standing to even bring a claim like this. And you know what cases she relied on? The cases that were filed when Barack Obama first got elected president, and these lawsuits were filed claiming that he wasn't actually a natural-born citizen of the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah, this is really helpful to understand sort of the constitutional matters at play here. But isn't the point really just to put this in people's heads so that they think it's disqualifying? They might be wrong on that, and constitutionally it might not be accurate. But again, isn't Tim Kaine and some of these Democrats just basically saying this so that people think he's not qualified and shouldn't have the office of the presidency?
Oh, I think that's exactly what's going on. Plus, they want to cause him even more practical problems.
Yes.
Look, we all know that he's going to have a heck of a time campaigning because of all the criminal indictments he's defending himself from. And what the left is hoping is that some state official will actually act to say, like a Secretary of State in a blue state, oh yeah, he's barred from being on the ballot. And then what's going to happen? Well, the Donald Trump campaign is going to have to sue
yes,
and get into court to change that opinion. And here's something else for people to keep in mind. This isn't new. The left tried to do this last year. They did it against members of Congress. I mean, there was a federal lawsuit, for example, filed in Wisconsin, trying to claim that Wisconsin U.S. Senator Ron Johnson and two of the Republican members of Congress should not be allowed on the ballot because they participated in supposed insurrection rebellion. You notice Ron Johnson got reelected.
He sure did.
Back in the Senate, which tells you that, again, that was unsuccessful.
All right, so that doesn't stop them. We know that. It's relentless. So play this out for us. Let's say the Michigan Attorney General or the Wisconsin Secretary of State just decide, yep, based on our judgment and the fact that we have control over such things for the state of Michigan or Wisconsin, respectively, we've determined that the evidence supports that Donald Trump led an insurrection, therefore triggering the 14th Amendment clause, and Mr. Trump's name will not appear on the ballot. Then what?
Then he files a federal lawsuit, and all of the judges are asked for expedited decision-making. And I can tell you that if Michigan appealed a decision adverse to them, it would get to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court would take it because the final decision on that would obviously have to be made before the Michigan primary. Right. So you would get a very fast path, I think, all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court would throw out what Michigan did. Now,
I made the point earlier that not only has Donald Trump not been convicted, let alone charged with insurrection, but neither of the 1,000 people who have been arrested post-January 6th. They've all faced various charges. Some have been convicted and sentenced, but not for insurrection. That said, what if Jack Smith, the special counsel, he can still bring charges? What if he brings an insurrection charge against Donald Trump?
If he does, we will know that it's pure politics intended to keep him off the ballot.
It doesn't matter, though. Of course, everything that he's done is pure politics, Hans. But if he brings the charge, is that enough then for the court to say, okay, well, he's been charged with insurrection by a special counsel?
Or does it have to go through the process?
And by the way, he can easily be convicted of that because of the jury pool in D.C. Yeah. Is that enough then for this to actually have some validity?
Well, I tell you, there's an interesting decision out of all places, Arizona State Supreme Court last year, again, where they tried to get several members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, barred from the ballot. The State Supreme Court threw out the case and said, there's no federal mechanism, no federal law for enforcing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And it would be entirely up to the feds to decide this, not state officials.
Feds meaning Congress? Or feds meaning Justice Department?
Feds meaning Congress.
And by the way, Congress has had an opportunity to chime on this with regard to Donald Trump because the House of Representatives impeached him on acts of insurrection, and the Senate found him not guilty.
Right.
Exactly so. So on the very charge, even if Section 3 were still there, Congress had the opportunity to act, and as you said, they found him not guilty. So state officials don't have the power to do this. Otherwise, you're saying that some lone state official can make a decision potentially affecting the presidency? Right. You just can't have that.
You can't have that, of course. But again, as I said before, it doesn't matter to them. Doesn't matter to them.
Right.
All right, Hans, listen, great job as always. You sound really good considering I know you're wearing 3 masks right now, given the new protocols in place. So thank you for that. Hans von Spakovsky, boys and girls, at 7:15.